Picked up these at a yard sale. So we're going to use some decoupage. So the first thing we're going to do is put a white background where we're going to apply the decoupage. So just grab any old white paint. This is white chalk paint. I'm actually using the color Fluff from Dixie Belle. Covers great. One coat, good to go. So the next thing we're going to do is figure out where we're going to place our paper. So this is a really cute songbird on a rectangular sheet of paper, and I thought, I bet you I can cut this or tear it in a way that I can use one small, it's not a very big sheet of paper, and use it in both the spots, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take a paintbrush dipped in water. And what I'm going to do is follow kind of a jiggy-jaggy line around the edge and just use the water to score the paper and then tear it. I seldomly ever just cut paper with scissors. I always use the water and the brush technique because I don't want it to be a severe edge. When you have a straight edge and you're doing decoupage and you try to blend the paint in, you'll see the line. So if you just take whatever's straight and just make it crooked, believe me, it helps so much just by ripping the edge of that paper. So all I'm doing is taking a paintbrush dipped in water and kind of just pulling it off so it's just not this straight edge. It's crazy how it does work, but it really does help a lot. And it's fast. I mean, it's the fastest way to go ahead and get your decoupage paper sized to the right size. So, same thing with the front. I just gone ahead and trimmed it with the water method, and there we go. I am going to use what is called a top coat. It is Satin Clear Coat by Dixie Belle. It has to be the satin clear coat. It is the absolute best decoupage medium I've ever used. So I don't recommend Mod Podge. I don't like Mod Podge. I use Satin Clear Coat. It is a Dixie Belle product. Not only will it's a great glue for your decoupage, but it will also seal it. So you can paint right over the top of the paper. Put a coat down, get your paper straightened out. I should have grabbed my brush here because try not to use your hands over your decoupage paper. The reason is that you will end up ripping it. Then I thought, oh, Debbie, grab a brush, dummy. So I grabbed a brush, and just any old brush, dry brush, that you can just go ahead and really get that to stick. It helps because the pressure of your hands will definitely rip the paper. And I will put a link to this paper. I do have some in stock right now. I have a couple sheets left. I will put it in the description if you'd like to order this actual one. I have a huge selection of tissue paper. Then we're going to take the satin clear coat and we're just going to do a quick coat over the top, right over the top. Do you know why we put white behind the decoupage? To paint it, why we painted it first? Well, to cover up the design underneath, but to make the decoupage paper really pop. If you don't put white behind the design, it just doesn't pop. Do the same thing with the leaves. Now, the satin clear coat is very, it has kind of like an opalescent look, and it will dry clear. As soon as it dries, you know you're ready to go on to your next step. So the clear coat's dried, so I grabbed a dark blue paint. I am using Miss Lillian's Stella Luna paint right now, and to be honest, I'm going to use a whole bunch of different paints on this piece to come together. I want to throw a quick base coat down. The best thing about this piece is it already was textured. It's just one of those home decor ugly things, and it had a texture on it, which ended up being so beautiful on the finished piece. So this is a dark blue that I absolutely love. So I laid down a coat and it is dry. So I'm going to go in and start kind of playing with colors. So I picked a palette of colors that were in the picture. I have an orange, a rust, a yellow, and a light blue. And I have them all in my paint, just using little dips of color. So I started looking at the tissue paper and I thought, I want to pull the colors that are on the actual paper onto the piece so that it looks as if the tissue paper, you can't tell. And that's one of the reasons, my friends, that we rip those edges, because we want to kind of, there's my color palette. I will list the colors in the description also, because I only showed it really quickly. It was a bright orange, a rusty orange, a yellow, and kind of a teal blue. And of course the dark blue, the original dark blue. So all I can tell you guys is at this point, you are going to just take, and I got a little too much paint on the paper, and guess what? It's fine because I sealed it already, so it won't ruin it. I am just taking little tiny bites. I can't emphasize that enough. I am barely just tipping little tiny tips into the paint, each color, and I'm just dabbing. Dab, 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 dab. See that? I am not like stroking. I am just smushing, for better words. You guys watch me anytime, you know that I have a great vocabulary of all these artistic, refined words. Smushing, dabbing. I mean, come on. You're just pouncing that paintbrush onto the piece. I'm never going to drag it. I'm always going to just kind of pounce it because it's got the built-in texture already. And I am going to start making that tissue paper appear not like it's a cut-out piece of tissue paper. Just taking little bites of paint, little tiny bites. I'm not dipping the whole brush in. Okay, I'm going to say this 25 times on this video. I am just taking little tiny bites, for a better word, of paint. Like the size of a pencil eraser. That much paint on my brush on one corner, and I'm just dabbing it down. So what I do when I look for colors, I kind of look at the picture and I'm like, okay, what kind of goes? So I notice that it's kind of a yellowish, pretty color that's behind the bird. So I just basically grab the blue, I grab the yellow. When you throw orange in there, look at how those leaves now don't just look like they're right there. It kind of pulls an abstract color of those leaves. There's that pretty bright turquoisey blue, and the paint is all wet. I'm not using a different brush. One brush for like 5 and 6 colors. And by dabbing, 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 just like I am, it just makes it look more natural. We're just starting to spread out. Kind of like when you look at the actual tissue paper behind the bird, he's kind of got a muddled background. It's the same effect. Little bites of paint here and there, blending them together by the dabbing thing, and next thing you know, it just expands and grows, and all of a sudden, the whole thing comes together. To be honest with you, this portion took me 10 minutes to do. When you have the right colors at your disposal, and I am just dabbing, I filmed this in real time. I didn't speed this video up, this portion, because I wanted you guys to see seriously how easy it was. Did you see how suddenly that came together by adding a little bit more of that teal? Your colors do not have to match exactly with what you're doing. They just have to coordinate. And then when you throw a little bit more of that orange in and a little bit more of that yellow, you're like, whoa. There's that bright blue. I'm trying to just build the colors a little at a time. A little bit of yellow. Dab, 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 dab. Splotch, splotch, splotch. You know, just, I never had to add any water. I never had to spray it with anything. Granted, it was a cold day. Now in the summertime, I may have had to spray a little bit of water to get to my paint to move, but this was it was about 40 degrees outside today and not very warm in my shop. Probably in the low 60s. So I didn't need water, but feel free to add water. Now this rust color was really the thing that all of a sudden made this pretty girl come to life, right? Just look at that. The leaves, all of a sudden, remember we teared the tissue paper? Can you tell me? You can see it on the bottom where I have not painted it all in yet, where we haven't layered the paint where the tissue paper is, but on the sides, you can't see it. On that left-hand side, a little bit of that rust color in these corners. These corners had these really cute scrolly things. I normally add that stuff to pieces, but this all came this way. And this, it's a trunk. Just totally taking on a different look, right? A different look, a different meaning. This is like a work of art now. That my husband told me, bring this home. This is so pretty. A little bit of that yellow into that blue, which is still damp. And then suddenly we kind of come up with a sagey green color. And by dabbing them together and adding the other colors, little bites at a time, all of a sudden, it turns into this beautiful work of art where all the colors seamlessly blend together. Isn't it crazy? It's so much fun to paint like this. It's like a craft, a painting, but you're crafting. Now, I've done a lot of these on cabinet doors. Take a piece of tissue paper, find an old surface to put it on, an old cabinet door, an old watering can, something you've got laying around your house that you're like, what am I going to do with this? And next thing you know, you've created a work of art by just dabbing colors that are represented in the picture itself, okay? We've got the orange, we've got the rust, we've got the a little bit of yellow with some blues, and all of a sudden, this thing just comes to life, and you're just like, wow, you're kind of building it a little bit at a time. Adding that rusty orange was really pretty because it just kind of shadowed and highlighted the outside. It was just really, really a great piece to add to the whole puzzle. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be little dots of paint. And next thing you know, you've got it going on. So I will end up actually blending this same technique on all sides of this little trunk because we want it to all go together. So I'm doing the top first, and then we'll do the front where we put the leaves on. Now look at the leaves. At first I was like, I want to use this whole sheet of tissue. I painted the dark blue just to get some coat of paint on there, and then I started. Same thing with what I did on the top. There's no bird on this one, and that's okay. You don't need to have two birds, right? You just kind of want to start going in. So I went in with the dark blue paint, then I added the yellow, same brush. I didn't get a new brush for each color. The beauty about using the same brush is that the colors are already melting together on the brush, and you're just adding a little bits here and there, and suddenly you're creating your own artwork. Now, to be honest with you, I could not paint like those leaves and stuff. I'm not that kind of artist, but I can take something like that and add it, and all of a sudden make it come to life as if it was one. The white is the background, but we're just going to cover that. We're going to add a little rust. What that rust is doing is pulling up on those, like, I think those are leaves, orange leaves, so that they're not alone, right? And all of a sudden your eye moves to the side and you're like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. And then I made the leaves look as if there were more leaves by adding some of the yellow. It's not the same yellow, but it's damn close enough. And just start playing with it and trying to cover up that white that I had on there with just little areas at a time. Take your time, dab your brush, keep going in and out, and like I said, little bites of paint, tiny bites. I wish the paint would have showed up on my brush better. Sometimes I can really capture how small of little chunks I'm taking, but literally I am just tipping my brush, meaning kind of poking it sideways and just grabbing a 1/16 of my brush bristles with paint on them, if I had to guess. And then adding the light blue in, and the yellow, and the rust, and all of a sudden, this thing just starts to grow. And it goes from, look at a little bit of that. So there's two oranges. There's like a tangerine orange, and then a rust orange. And then a little bit of the yellow, and all of a sudden the leaves are like, oh wow, they're over here too. But they're not, they're just dabs of paint. But it moves your eye and it plays with you. Look at the yellow on top of the leaves. It looks like an abstract painting now. That rust was really, that color is just amazing. And it's actually called Cinnamon Stick, and it's by Miss Lillian's. It's a beautiful orangey rust. A lot of the paint lines have it. Dixie Belle has the color Rusty Nail. Mud Paint has one called Rust. I mean, I have a lot of that color in different paint lines, so you don't have to use the exact same colors that I did, but just kind of be freeing. Any kind of tissue paper you can do this with, you guys. This isn't any different than any of the other ones that I've done. Now I'm adding like that tangerine orange. That's actually Florida Orange by Dixie Belle, the one that I'm using right there. And all of a sudden, it just turns into like a canvas, right? This ugly box that had some girl's name on it, and the top circle, which I painted over before I started to film, had some roses that somebody had decoupaged that was peeling off. It's all of a sudden come to life with a $10 sheet of tissue paper and a very inexpensive trunk that I bought at a yard sale. I think I spent $15 for it. It turning into a beautiful work of art, honestly. Beautiful work of art that you would have never thought, right? And just little dots of paint. I barely used any paint. Now look. Isn't it so beautiful? I'm so psyched about this one. You guys, thanks so much for watching. I will list all my materials in the description, and you can order them all off of my website, Tona Transformations. Thanks for watching. Remember to always go out and be fabulous. Thanks, guys.